Merrill Memo with Matthew Dickerson from Dubbo Regional Council.
It's 10 minutes to 8, and at 10 to 8 in the morning, it's time to head up to Dubbo. And Mayor Matthew Dickerson, good morning.
Good morning, Kerry. It's that time of year. Merry Christmas to you and all your listeners. It's not
Thank you very much indeed for that. And right back at you too.
Thank you.
Santa Claus is floating around. He'll be here today, week, which is interesting, although I think he flows over my place. Forgets about me. Now, listen, just a couple of things that I wanted to cover with you this morning. The first thing is most of the attractions in the Dubbo area, for example, the jail and so on, are only closed on Christmas Day, aren't they?
Yeah, they've done very well there. The staff there are very committed. So Old Dubbo Jail and Wellington Caves are both only closed on Christmas Day. Our visitor information centres are closed for Christmas Day and Boxing Day, but a lot of the information now, we find a lot of people access that information online, so obviously that's all still operational. Things like the Dubbo Regional Botanic Garden, that's only closed on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. So most of the things that you'd like to go to, I'm just trying to think of something else, Western Plains Cultural Centre, that's closed on Christmas Day and on New Year's Day. So most of the things are open there, you can still see, go and look at those things. Maybe even the library, that might be popular around that time of year. So that does close from Sunday, the 24th of December, through to Tuesday, the 2nd of January. So most things, if you want to come along and see things, obviously the zoo, I don't know, we don't run the zoo obviously, but I assume they're, well, actually I don't know. I don't know what days, you'd have to look up the zoo.
Yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
The other thing, I just wanted to touch on that too, by the way, with the Dubbo Jail, if you haven't been there for a while, you've got some new exhibits there, haven't you?
Oh, look, absolutely fascinating. There's one exhibit, and there's one of our staff members there, Chris Animat. He's very focused on just working on the jail, working through different things there. He's been there for 17 years. He's put a huge amount of time and effort into this whole process called the Life of Crime exhibit, and there's actually a book created as well. And in the penal system, back we're talking about the 1800s, 1900s, they would take a photo when you entered the penal system each time. So if you were arrested and put in jail in Dubbo, for example, or then later on in Bathurst or in Maitland, you'd take a photo taken each time you came into the system. And so he found a number of repeat offenders and then found their photo each time they came into the system. And it's amazing how much they've aged in a fairly short period of time as they went through their life of crime. So it's a really interesting exhibit to see how they've aged through that period and that recidivism. We talk about recidivism now and the problem we've got. Well, problems obviously happened back way in the 1800s and 1900s as well. And something that many people don't realise, Kerry, is that the jail, the Old Dubbo Jail, was still a normal operational jail until 1966. So many people that are living in Dubbo now remember that as a jail, as an operational jail. 1974 it was turned into a tourist attraction, and of course one of the significant things there is from 1877 to 1905 there were 8 people that were hung there. The other thing that's been updated is our gallows gallery. We've had that for a little while now. 32 people were on death row at Old Dubbo Jail. 8 of those were hung, as I mentioned, and 22 were commuted and 2 were acquitted. And you look through those people there on death row, and you've got a little bit of information about them on a plaque, but we've added a touchscreen now where you can drill down and look at all the records that we could find about each of those individuals, their court records, newspaper clippings, and some of those people were on death row for things that nowadays you wouldn't be on death row for. So, for example, there's one person who was on death row for bestiality. Not something nice to talk about at breakfast, I understand, but you wouldn't be on death row now for bestiality. It'd be a bit embarrassing for people, but you certainly wouldn't be on death row. So when you read some of those stories about some of the background of some of these people, it's actually quite fascinating to see how much our attitudes to crime have changed. So it's worthwhile having a look at that, Kerry.
Now, the other thing is the RFS Centre of Centre of Excellence, really, I suppose, is it? It's a training area, isn't it?
Well, we've had the RFS Training Centre for a while, but this new opening we had last week was the RFS Aviation Centre of Excellence. And that is absolutely fascinating there. There's so many people that come to Dubbo and are trained from the Rural Fire Service. We've got the whole emergency services precinct around the airport now. They've got accommodation out there for 124 people because so many people are coming through with their training, and there's a new police training centre there that's not finished yet but will be opened up next year. But the RFS Aviation Centre of Excellence, world-class. Minister Jihad Dib was here opening it. World-class facility, first in Australia like this, and I had a bit of a play, and I probably shouldn't say play because it's more serious than that, but I got to use some of the facilities. So you put a VR headset on, and then you're in a helicopter. You're not, of course, you're sitting in a cabin on the ground, but you go through and you're on the fire grounds. You're looking at what you might do on the fire grounds. You've got the LAT, the water bomber that's down below you. You've got the bird dog above you. So you're doing that sort of training. But the other training they did, which I thought was fascinating, was training people being winched in and out of a helicopter, for example. And in the past, one of the people there told me that they used to do the training when they did their training below an actual helicopter. And so you're spending maybe $1,000 or more an hour while that's hovering. You've got the risk associated with being out with that helicopter, whereas this training is indoors. You've got one, I'm not sure what you'd call it, but a facility that keeps you a couple of metres above the ground. So if everything goes wrong and you fall, you might fall 1.5 metres. And that's obviously going to sprain your ankle at worst, not what would happen if you're doing the training in an actual helicopter. So really fascinating technology that's in use there at that Aviation Centre of Excellence.
Sir, I thank you very much indeed for your time in 2023. Look forward to talking to you in 2024. You and yours have a wonderful festive season.
Thank you, Kerry. I look forward to it.
Good, mate. Thanks, you. I appreciate it. Matthew Dickinson there, down there.
Mero Memo with Matthew Dickinson from Dubbo Regional Council.